at our zipForms program. I'm Lisa Ginsburg, the Director of Education, and I just have a couple of housekeeping announcements before we begin our program. Feel free to unmute, not unmute yourself, but to turn your video on. We'd love to see you. It's not a requirement, but we'd certainly love to see you. Please do keep your mute on. It just helps with the program, and we do record these as well. And the mute button and the stop video button are at the bottom of your screen on the, there's a toolbar. There's also a chat box at the bottom, and we're asking if you have any questions for Jim to please use the chat box and to make sure to click everyone. And we'll be reading the questions out to Jim at certain parts of the program. Jim, we're thankful to have you today. Jim is Jim Olivieri. He is the broker owner of his company, Penn Jersey Realty, which was founded in 2016 and serves both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. In addition to he's also a registered member of NAR. Obviously, he's a member of BCAR, which he serves as the chair of our technology committee. And he's a member of the Burlington-Camden County Association of Realtors. He's also a proud member of the National Association of Gay and Lesbian Real Estate Professionals. He has so many designations, Jim, I just can't even go through them all. But, you know, a lot of designations, and it looks like he's still working on some. And, you know, as the chair of the technology committee, he's just fantastic and has these great ideas for programs that really do help us. So we thank you, Jim. Before we begin with Jim, it's my pleasure to introduce one of our affiliate members, Greg Emmons. Greg is senior counsel at the Goldstein Law Partners, and he's here to provide some valuable and helpful information to us. Thank you, Greg.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to be here. I'm pleased to be an affiliate member of Bucks County Association of Realtors. I see a bio of me that's just appeared on the screen. I have been practicing real estate law since 1978. My father-in-law, now deceased, was a real estate broker in Newtown. And when I was in law school, he urged me to take all the real estate courses I could. And I graduated from law school, and then he started me with teaching at Bucks County Community College and with George Ehrmantraut. His name was Stu Whittam, UB Eastburn. It goes back a while. And I started teaching at Slicker Kratz. And then I moved myself up to teaching the attorneys for the Pennsylvania Bar Institute. I've published a few books on real estate law, primarily on real estate brokerage law. I do all sides of the real estate transaction. I'm very familiar with all of the realtors' requirements and the real estate forms. I utilize the forms. I am not a deal killer. I keep deals together. Now you'll see on the screen, I do residential and commercial at a fair price. Sellers, pre-listing resolution of title, boundary line, and permits. Guidance with their disclosures. If you're in doubt, disclose. Assistance with terms and conditions of the agreement of sale, especially when something special is being written in, to make sure it's going to come from the buyer's agent. Make sure it is clear, not ambiguous. I counsel with proposed addenda after the inspections, and of course, review closing documents, and if necessary, attend closing. On the buyer side, many times the buyer's agents or the buyer's mortgage company handles the reviewing financing and mortgage qualifications, but from time to time there are issues, and because of my experience, I can put my 2 cents in and perhaps assist in finding a better mortgage or a mortgage that they did not look at for qualification. I guidance with housing needs and opportunities. Sometimes it's their sheriff sales, sometimes there's tax sales. And incidentally, Bucks County Sheriff's Department is holding their sheriff sale this Friday online. This is the first time it's ever been done in Bucks County, and you can go to the Bucks County Sheriff's Office and register and just listen in to the sheriff's sale if that's something that would interest you. I assist the buyers with a review of disclosures and terms and conditions of the agreement of sale, especially contingencies. I counsel them with title, inspection, lending issues, and of course, review closing documents and attend if necessary. Landlords and tenants. There's certainly some new laws regarding landlord tenants, and that's because of the epidemic, COVID, but I do review property issues, resolve pre or post leasing terms and conditions, prepare and or review leases and special clauses and contingencies. Also sometimes getting involved with permitting, financing, fit up issues, disputes during the lease, and unfortunately evictions or defense thereof. Now for my favorite, the agents and offices. I was a licensed real estate salesperson before I was a licensed attorney. So, and I go way back. I always keep my current license to teach. I'm licensed to teach in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. With the agents, there are licensing issues I'm familiar with, the employment independent contractor agreements, policies and procedures of an office. I've written many, many policies and procedures, especially for the commercial offices. When I was Tri-State Real Estate Commissions Associations Council, many commercial agencies had me write their policies and procedures. And then forms, the commercial brokers are starting to get more PAR forms, but in many cases they have to have special forms. And I do mediations, arbitrations, and commission proceedings. And I guess the book that I would like you to know about that I've written and utilize often when I teach is Pennsylvania Real Estate Brokerage Law and Practice. Is that good enough for 3 minutes?
That is. Thank you so very much. And
All right.
appreciate your time, Greg. And Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right,
Greg.
perfect. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
Welcome, everybody, to putting the zip back in zipForms. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here today. And the reason why we wanted to put this together and why I'm so excited about zipForms is because the last thing we want to do is hung up on our paperwork and inside of our files. It's a real important part of the process. However, I know we want to be out there selling as opposed to finicking and figuring out how to do zipForms and make our transactions as simple and efficient as possible. So I wanted to go over just our objectives for today, which was sent out. I have 7 bullet points on there that we're going to go through. We're going to define transaction management, set up our profile, creating new templates inside the zipForms file, a basic checklist, and putting together the MLS, connecting it with that. What's really nice is because once you connect it, it'll populate all that information from the MLS, saving you time and energy. We're going to add the templates to a new transaction. We're going to explore some of the transaction summary and the management functionality. We're going to look at the agent dashboard and how it populates graphs. And then the transaction history, recent activities, and other tools that even to me, I was unaware of that zipForms does have to offer. And then at the end, because I know we only have about 50 minutes together, zipForm does a great job with their live online training. They might have up to 3 classes every single day. So if we can't find everything we want to know here in this class, they really do a good job with with training in-house there as well. So to get started, one of the first things, setting up your settings in zipForms, and that's where we're headed. And the reason why it's important, and just making sure everybody can see this here, in the top right-hand side, when you see your little circle icon, why this is nice and important, because some of this information will go over to your documents and your libraries. So when you click on the Me section up top, and you click on the profile and settings, it'll take you in to everything here that'll have all the information for your notifications, sign-in, security, passwords, offices, forms, and things like that. Now, a lot of the stuff here, I'm going to go over high-level overview, but some of the real important things that I've found, I'm going to share. So the basic about me, fill that out. Anything with the asterisk is required anyhow. If you do utilize towards the bottom here, an email signature, if you are sending documents out through zipForms when you're submitting offers or anything like that, you can have your email signature all set up, and it's included if you check off the box here for all outbound notifications. So that's important, but I would say one of my favorite features that I didn't even know about till recently, the Forms tab. So again, we're in Settings, Profile. Under the Forms tab, these are all of your form libraries. Okay, so every association you belong to, Bright even has their own library, and NAR as well. Now inside here, you can actually organize these on how you like them to be registered when you pop open a new file and you see your forms. So I can switch these all around just by dragging them. More often I use PAR than anything in my forms in the libraries. So I keep that one on top here. But I would urge you to check out which libraries you do use a lot, organize them in a fashion, and this way, when you are in a transaction and you go to your forms, they're all going to be here listed just how you drag and drop them into place. So that's one of the important features too with the profile. So going back into there, different settings and why this is important. So a lot of times when we teach this class, you have Authentisign as a third party, e-signature, DocuSign, depending on your association, whom you use. So a lot of times it'll default to the first one up here, which is the digital ink Authentisign. I'm a fan of DocuSign instead. So when I'm under my settings tab, if I want DocuSign to make sure that that's what's being sent out and I don't have to click and change it every time when I'm creating an envelope, I make sure that this is my default. So you can toggle back and forth between them. And then when you link your existing DocuSign account, it'll make sure that it pulls all the information, shoots it over into DocuSign, and then you're off and running into your electronic signatures. So again, we're just under profiles and settings, and then we're under the settings tab. The account preferences. I like this because it sets your default landing page. And what does that mean? That means simply once I log in, what's it going to take me to? zipForm is going to take me right to my transactions. Now you can have it set up so this way it takes you to your dashboard instead. You can have it so it sets up for the transaction lists. So it's those little preferences that I think go a long way because it can save you time and energy, especially with the defaults. So definitely check out the settings tab in here. It'll give you a lot more preferences, maybe some things that you're unsure about too, or how it could benefit you, but they always have that little question mark in the blue circle that'll give you an idea of what that tab, what that feature does. And it's real simple, toggles on and off, back and forth. One of the things I never knew, and we'll go over this in the tools section of the presentation, the mortgage calculator. So it is kind of primitive, but if you do want to have a mortgage calculator all in one spot, zipForm does have that as well. And then some of the other items you'll see in there when you mess around. I wanted to go over just the main points here. Notification settings. And this is the last one that I want to go over in your settings tab. So after you put your information in there, you have your profile set up. You can even add your face, your picture in there. This way, you'll see inside the transaction, you'll have your photo. But the notification settings is really important. This way you get your email notifications, your in-app notifications. And what that in-app notification means is right up here at the bell. So it's not a mobile app or anything like that. It goes right into the website for zipForm here. It'll also give you ways to notify how many days before or after or until a due date pops up for your notifications. So you can really use this to utilize it to your benefit for how you want to run your business. And that's what it's all about, making it easier, putting the zip back into zipForm to allow you to work more efficiently and a little bit quicker too. So that's the overview for the settings. And I'm going to check in. We're going to do questions with Lisa. We'll do after 2 slides, and then we'll check in just to see if there's any questions. The next big thing that I always like to go over with agents, new transaction and the MLS Connect. And you'll see the diagram right there. And let's pop in here. So this, I think, is the most time-saving feature inside zipForm. When you go to create a new transaction and you click on the new button towards the top here, and you do a new listing, new purchase, new lease, whatever the transaction may be. Now, in a brokerage setting, a lot of you may have, your broker has their own templates. So it'll say global. You can create your own personal templates. This way, if you have something that is still required by your brokerage, make sure you're in compliance, but maybe you use something else during buyer counseling sessions. When you go and you fill in all the information that's required, the name of the transaction, the type of category, the status, right underneath, if you apply a transaction, it'll pull in all of the forms that's necessary, as well as any checklist that you have, or again, that your broker has. And you always want to check to make sure you're compliant with whatever your broker is doing. Look at that, truth in advertising, nothing even pulled up. So let's go to my templates for a sec so you can see the ones that I have. So the way that we have them here in our office, and the way I think it works well, with our agents, we have different folders set up. So here we have 7 individual folders set up for each template. And we go step by step. So each agent knows the first thing you conquer is a counseling session, and then you move down the line. So every time, and these are all forms that are outside of, say, PAR libraries, Nexus or whatnot. So these are inner office forms. And I know we had a question about how to add them, and it's real simple inside of a transaction. And I'll go over that as well. But this template feature is real important here. And like I said, you can have it set up your own way, your personal, your broker will probably have their own templates as well, but make sure you utilize that, because the last thing you want to do is constantly add forms and waste all the time there. Oh, QuickBooks is popping up. So let's pause there just to see if there's any questions. Lisa, if we have anything in the chat box.
We don't have anything in the chat box. Just a reminder from Kelly, if you don't
Sure.
have DocuSign and would like a DocuSign activation email, to email her, and she will send that to you. It's a BCAR benefit, and you should be taking advantage of it. No questions right now, though, other than the couple that I had sent you earlier.
Yeah, and I'm going to address the one there because
Sure.
it was, how do we add a document to a transaction? So real simple, if it's not PAR or if it's not the preset library. So when you go to pick any file and your transaction, it'll land you on your summary page. If you go over to the documents tab here, and there's actually multiple ways to add it, but you can save a step. There's an add doc button here. If you click in the documents tab, which I'm used to, you can add doc there. So if I click on add doc, it'll give me a bunch of options here how to add that form. If I browse for the document, it'll take me to open up everything that's on my desktop. So I can say I wanted to add this multiple offer summary. I can give it a name. And now it's part of that transaction. So it's real easy to add non-par or non-association forms or zip forms right into the transaction. And one way that I always do it is I'll just drag and drop it straight in. So if I identify where my PDF is, I'll just go take it from my downloads here, and then you'll see when you hover over the transaction, it'll say drop files to upload. The name's good for the display. I hit OK. And voila, it is in there.
We did get a question after
Sure.
you started speaking. From Barbara Moore, when you use a template, does any form in the template update when PAR updates the forms?
So yes, every time there's an update, and that's a great question, Barbara, every time there's an update from PAR or whatnot, the library will be updated automatically. So as soon as an update occurs, changing language, maybe in the AOS or something like that, it will be updated right in this forms library here. So you don't have to go find it or take it from PAR website and drop it in. So it's automatically updated, which is another great benefit to have zipForm included in your member benefit and have it all synced up right with the libraries, because you don't have to go chasing down the latest form. And just to give you a tip as well, if you're using forms in your transaction that are maybe the older forms and you want to update the file, there is a copy feature that you can enable here It'll copy everything that you've done, but it'll upload with new forms. And I won't get into that. It'll be something that we can discuss maybe after I can send out an email just to show you how to do that, because sometimes these docs change very often or in the middle of a transaction.
We got another question, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Are there any classes upcoming for DocuSign zipForms via cell phone? And then I had to do an addendum last week with no internet except cell service. Also, please explain archives and purpose for me. And finally, my work email doesn't work with zipForms and boots me off. Who should I talk to? This is from Dawn Van. Dawn, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, but it's Van Reed. So sorry about that if I butchered it.
All right, Dawn. So I'm going to take a couple of those, and then because there's going to be at the last slide, it's going to be the online training. And right through the BCAR site, you can access the calendar for zipForm. And when you go in there, I mean, they have a whole learning center here under help, but they do have a calendar for zipForm. And I mean, they have a class every day, if not 2 or 3. So, and they do it in different phases. So based on your level of knowledge for zipForm and whatnot, you can go in there, see what tickles your fancy, sign up for that, register, and then go straight into the class. And it's all right, you can see right from the help learning center, and they have multiple classes there. Via cell phone, do you mean, I'm guessing that you want to watch the class on your phone, which is perfectly fine. As long as you have service, you should be able to do that. Creating an addendum on the cell phone is a little tough if you have an iPad or say a laptop, but we'll tackle that towards the end of the class there, but those are good questions as well. All right, so back to the next slide here. So templates, why are they're your best friend? Again, we already went over that mainly because of the time saving inside there. And I think I jumped over the MLS Connect. So we're going to go back to that. So once you have your templates, and again, you might have all your broker already did all the work for you. Once you're back into your transactions, say you're adding a buyer transaction. If you go into new, you're creating a new purchase transaction, and you'll see a little MLS Connect here. So when I click on MLS Connect, it'll take me to this import screen using MLS Connect. So now it's going to speak to Bright or whomever your MLS is in this area. It's going to be Bright, but there's a drop-down box in case it's a different MLS. You're finding the property next. So that's the first step. Number 2, you're going down. I know I want to find a residential. And then if I find out the listing ID in the MLS, include the property photo. When I hit find, it's going to pull in all that information from the MLS. So everything from public records, everything that's already entered in, and I'm going to be able to use that listing and input all that information. And then it's going to be on your forms as well. So it's going to be on your contracts. It's going to be on everything where the zipForm says this blank is where the tax ID is or whatnot, the purchase price, and everything's going to be in there. Of course, you can edit everything, but it's just nice and synced up, so it'll save you time right there. Now, let me go in and just show you. Let's go into MLS for 1 second here. And I'm going to do one. I'm going to find a listing ID. And we'll pop it in there so you can see the information. It'll pull the photo, and the photo will show right on top of your transaction as well. Let's just do new active. Here we go. So we have MLS number right here. You can literally copy and paste it from wherever you find it. Bright's easy. When I put it in here, and I'm going back to my transaction details. I'm lying, I'm sorry, it's right in front of my face. MLS number. And this actually can take you right to RPR as well if you want it to populate right from RPR. But let me make sure, because I did update my RPR record connect. MLS Connect, there we go. So this will get me right back to the screen. I pop in the listing ID. I click on find include property photo. So now it'll populate everything, the address, city, state, listing price, date, agent ID, and everything like that. Once I hit import, it'll ask me if I want to replace any existing data In the beginning, if you don't have anything, you can pop it in. If you already did start to fill things out, you can hit no. But once I hit yes, it'll automatically populate right to my transaction. So that's why the MLS Connect's real important, and it's simple. And as you see too, you can do through RPR. And again, there's classes on that for listing presentations. They have a whole bunch of nice presentations inside there. So it can be linked up directly with your zipForm as well. The next where we want to go is the transaction summary and management. So why this is important, you're running a business, right? In the top here, as soon as we populate with the MLS Connect, we have the property summary. It gives us all the information, listing summary, and I can fill in all this information here, what it includes, what it excludes in the MLS. We can change the price in terms of purchase price underneath. So it'll give you all these separate boxes. And why I like this is because it's like your own back office here. You'll be able to see throughout the year and at any time how many deals you've sold, what's your volume. You can even get into your commission splits. It'll go very in depth. And again, you don't have to pay for anything extraneous. Everything's here right in zipForms. So right when you have, let's see, if the purchase price is $439 these days, it's probably going to go for $580, let's say. Just kidding. But so the purchase price, you can put in there your deposits, whatever your deposit is, contract dates, everything will populate in here and it'll go to forms. If you do it here once, it's automatically populated in your docs. Listing side commission summary. So if you're representing the buyer, you can put the listing percentage in there. It'll automatically populate the commission amount. And then you can go down and get real specific in terms of your office commission, any admin or TC fees, and any referrals and stuff like that. And again, it's good because you're running a business. You want to know in the click of a button what's going on. So here's the dashboard. When I toggle over from transactions, and this is my test site here, which of course is giving us trouble. When I go to my dashboard, it'll let me know tasks that are due this week. And now it's being shy because it usually populates all this information. Closed transaction commission, quarterly sales. So right in the touch, you can see everything with what your business is doing here. It'll give you what listings are expiring, all the transactions that are closing this month. So it's a nice organized dashboard for you to see how much money you're taking in, what your purchase prices are, what you need to do and whatnot. So it can save you a lot of energy there and it keeps you organized if you don't have an admin or a TC doing that for you. There's what the dashboard looks like. All right. So the dashboard, like you can see here, it'll give you everything in a nice graph. It'll show you potential sales volume, what's active, what's pending. It'll break it down, active property types. It'll give you active transaction types. And then even along the right side, it'll tell you your recent activity. So if you're kind of unsure what you've been doing, it'll tell you where the files are that you imported. It'll give you all the information and history. There we go. So what I've removed, what I've added to my file, anything that I've created, the documents. So I can play along right from my recent activity. And if I think when I'm overwhelmed and I want to make sure that I've added the SPD inside of the transaction, I can just scroll through my little recent activity and see if I've done that. So that's the high level overview of the agent dashboard, why I think it's important with you running your business. And again, zipForm does great with their training for everything, much more in depth, with each of these features too. And I'm going to do one more, and then Lisa, we're going to jump in just to see if there's any questions here. So we went over the transaction history, some of the recent activity, like you can see inside the agent dashboard. And we're going to jump into tools for a second, because this is a pretty cool unknown feature. So underneath tools, which is right here in my zipForm, when I click on it, it does give you a 3-feature dropdown. Clause manager. Now we had the attorney on at the top of the class. Be careful here, because this, maybe you have your broker who's giving some templated clauses to add into agreement of sales or contracts. So this is where things can be created, new clauses. You can delete clauses. And this is a real terrible one that I did for a test, so please don't use that language. You can import them, again, from your brokerage, from your office, export them out. And from here, you can add them into your contract. So if there's something that your broker uses, that's a template for every single file, every single transaction, it can live in here and you can add it right to your documents. Another thing that's nice with the tools, you can do a lookup field manager. So this is, you can search any docs, any field inside of your documents in case you want to know where to go to, where you have to change anything inside of your files, or you're looking for some information, or just to take you right to the spot. A lot of times what we can save time in is just searching. Computers are great when they're working, but mostly the important thing is to know how to search. So as long as you know a piece of a file transaction name or part of a paragraph, and you can search it and look it up inside the field manager, or anywhere for that instance, inside your email, inside your laptop here. So the search feature in here is really neat too, because like I said, you can select any field, pop it up, and it'll import, it'll bring over the document exactly right to that point where you want to check out in your file. And then lastly in the tools is the mortgage calculator. So again, like I mentioned, it's kind of primitive. You're working with a lender, so they can do a lot of this. Inside Bright, they have their own buyer closing costs and your own mortgage calculators as well. But if you want a real rough, and you're inside zipForms, a real rough payments calculator, and you fill this in here, and you can figure out all your amortization, you can look at everything. So it's just a nice little feature, so you don't have to pop in and out of so many different tabs if you don't want to go through all of that, just to see what's going on for a monthly payment calculator. Taxes, mortgage insurance in here. So it'll populate monthly expenses, total monthly payment, and whatnot. You can print out the entire calculator. Again, this will go through the entire amortization as well. You can display the table, which if you want a heart attack, right? That's what we always tell everybody at the closing table. It'll show you each and every monthly payment. So a nice little cool feature that's built right into zipForm there. And let's take a little break just to see if there's any questions. And I'm going to pop some water here.
Okay, we do have two from Sarah Drake. Whenever I get to the broker details on a New Jersey contract of sale, my zipForm freezes and I start all over again.
The broker details. Sarah, Sarah, are you on? Can you unmute yourself?
Let me see if I can unmute.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. It seems like it happens almost every time. I'm writing up the contract for New Jersey, NJAR. I get down to near the very end, like page 12, I think it is. And it's, information supplied by, and it just freezes. And then I lose all my data and have to start all over again. And I don't know if it's Safari. I don't know, or if it's because I'm not using the right browser, but it happens so often, and it's the same spot every time I enter that. It's just really good.
I have two suggestions there. Definitely use Chrome as your browser. Safari, for some reason, doesn't support it as well as Google Chrome. So I would say first, set yourself up and get Chrome and use that browser. Second, just thinking back onto the settings, when I'm back under profile and settings, they do have a nice feature to where there's automatic save. So you have a time interval, and I wish it was 30 seconds as opposed to off in 5 minutes. But there's a preference button under here where it'll do an automatic save. So this way, as you're going along and filling out the contract of sale, it'll, in 5 minutes time, it'll automatically save it just in case something like that shuts down. But I think it is mostly the browser. Safari does give you problems with more sites than just zipForms. So that might be the fix.
Okay, and then Barbara Moore, how do you save that screen? So Barbara, maybe unmute yourself so you can, explain what screen you were talking about.
Sure. So the when you were doing a new transaction and the first screen was there to fill in like your brokerage information and so forth, it doesn't have a save icon. So
I got you. Let me see. So if I'm under, say, for instance, here, you mean property
Yes.
summary?
Yes.
Yeah, these are a little tricky. So what happens is usually there is a save button at the top right. Now let me see if my browser is giving me trouble here. But so brokerage information, say if I did the property summary, let me just input that there. And if I switch it over, and let me just double check to see if it automatically saves, because a lot of times, sometimes it might auto save. Let's see, washer, dryer. Because just the other day, what happened was it gave me a prompt at the top of my screen to change into this format, which is why usually the MLS Connect is here and I see save. So I'm pretty certain now the one feature they do, kind of like how Bright MLS, when you're entering a new listing, it doesn't auto save pretty quickly. So once I enter in that information, it should save that as soon as I type it in, and then even toggle back and forth. So let's see if it does. When I go to documents, summary, yep. So it's automatically saving as you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it for questions right now.
Okay, perfect. So the last couple slides I wanted to dive into was the training. So you can go through the BCAR website, which has everything right on there, how to link up with zipForm and see their calendar as well. If you're inside your zipForm, you can go to the Learning Center, and it does have the live online training. They have a host of everything in terms of videos, right, that they post on their YouTube channel. But this is really where you can really get into the nitty-gritty, see all the features that zipForm has, and kind of dive further into it. Like I had mentioned, zipForm, I'm going to pull up their site. They have classes, like I said, it's almost overwhelming, but every single day. And whether it's live webinars or maybe something that's pre-recorded, but more often than not, it is live the majority of the time that I see. And they offer, like I mentioned, different phases, MLS Connect. So it's really good to hop on 30, 60 minutes, and they're going to go through it in detail, how to set everything up within the different phases of your zipForm transaction. So just to go back, a couple other little things, tips and tricks that I like to pick up through zipForm. Let me just make my screen a little bit bigger here. So how I have it looking, and it goes right to my transactions. So I can have my active files up top, my pending. You can see prospects. You can see everything here. Now I can collapse them. Once I have them open, there's a couple different grids that you can use. So you can do how you group them by status, or if you want to have them individual line items. So whatever you like, whatever your preference is, I always like to have it like this. And the reason being is I kind of switch statuses. I can easily hover over any status. It'll take me right to that transaction information. And here I can change the category again, the transaction type, or if the status changes to prospect pending, I can do that and then save. So it's a nice quick, and then you see it goes right underneath my pending files. So it's nice quick features here. Also inside, when it's blocked, you have the More Actions tab, and this will take you right to the actions on the right. It'll give you an overview of your transaction details. I can open the file, and actually, since we're here, I'm talking about the copy function because I said that earlier. So let's talk about that. So like Barbara had asked, what happens if there's a new form coming over from PAR? So if you're caught in the middle of new forms popping into your libraries, if you copy, I'm going to name it copy just to be safe. If you copy the file, it'll bring you back to this transaction details page. So everything can stay the same. I can copy the listing and property information. I can copy the purchase information. I'm going to do both. I can include the forms or not include the forms. So you can toggle back and forth between the two. If I don't include the forms and then I go and I set up my template, the new forms will be in there. But as long as you create the copy and the parties are in there, you'll then can set the template and have the new forms automatically put into the transaction file. So for instance, if I click on this file here and I go into the parties tab, this is where you set up everybody. This is easy because it's once you set it up here, it's kind of like a template for the entire transaction. So if I'm setting up sellers, I can click on seller 1. It'll give me the transaction party, and then I can go in, I can fill in all their information, save it as a contact. This is real beneficial if you have SIP CRM. And then it'll automatically save under seller 1 and then go into all the files and prep all the documents when you go through on Authentisign or DocuSign. And this way, seller number 1 is there and Eric's name and all of his information stays there. If you go here and put it in parties first, I urge you to do that because then you won't have to do it later on. Yeah, you can do it one time here and then it'll be for the remainder of the transaction until it changes. So I think that pretty much sums up the real high level overview, some of the benefits and features of zipForm as I use it to kind of make it efficient. But I did want to have just an open time for some Q&A, just because I know sometimes I can fly through zipForm pretty quickly. So just to see if anybody has questions, to put them in the chat box or raise your hand and we can discuss.
There is a question from Cinnamon Baffa. Is there a part of the program for the office can view and also work in the files?
Do you want to unmute yourself, Cinnamon, and we'll try to answer that for you?
Yeah, what I have is we're currently using Dotloop and I'm wanting to transfer over, but right now my office can, work in the file, add the forms. We do all that stuff for our agents. So is there part of this program and what is that?
Sorry, I'm just not understanding. Are you saying you're trying to transfer the file out of Dotloop into DocuSign?
No. So basically right now, like we use Dotloop and the agent does the file, they get it, then my conveyancer works in the file, we close the file, everything is done in that file. So
right.
With this, how do I get to the broker management of these files? The broker has to have access to this.
Right. So normally what happens is your brokerage has a broker admin account. So normally, and everyone's different. So you might be using, like, this is my individual agent that I use as a test for the classes. So you won't be able to see exactly how your broker sees it because you'll actually be able to send for approval. Your broker can actually have placeholder documents inside the file. So as soon as you set up templates, it should automatically come from your office inside zipForm to have placeholder docs, any kind of forms that they want you to have signed and whatnot.
Okay, but as the broker of the office or the manager of the office, can I go into their files? So say somebody's, so I can see what's going on. I can make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. All the forms are correct.
Yes, if you have,
they give it to me.
If you have a broker admin account, and you'll be able to tell from the top right when you click on the the little 2 stars here, and it should say this is a broker account or this is an individual agent.
Okay.
So if it says broker account, then you can go through the entire office and see every transaction.
Okay.
Your dashboard is the same thing. You'll be able to see all the pending transactions, active listings, and all the graphs and everything like that included.
But that's additional fees. That's not included, right?
Right. Yeah. The member benefit, we don't have it. It's individual agents. So if it's something that's a broker account, that's right, an upgrade with zipForm themselves.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
We have a question from Dawn. I was hoping there is an easier way to correct a form once you are in DocuSign. Usually there is an error in the agreement of sale, and I always have to do the elected and waived section again, even though it has to do with something else. Sorry if it's confusing. If you want Dawn to unmute herself.
Sure. Dawn, yeah, you can unmute yourself. And I think I know what you're talking about, but just for clarification. And in the meantime, what I'll do until Dawn pops on, when you're in
I don't
Zip.
know, can you hear?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Dan Ryan, by the
Okay.
way. I can't find all the buttons. I've literally rewritten contracts 6 or 7 times because one thing is wrong. And it has nothing to do with the elected and waive sections where you have to
Constantly put those little
Oh
boxes.
my gosh, I feel like I'm cutting and pasting my entire night away, which I am.
Right.
Is there any way to correct the documents once it's in document or DocuSign? Other than going back into the original?
The only way to correct it, it does have a strike through. So it would be kind of you're editing it inside DocuSign at that time. Like for instance, let's, when you're inside your file, let's go to eSign and pretend we have, I'm going to pick the offer and I'll do the standard agreement of sale. It's DocuSign. So when I go through and it pops you up to the add signatures, which is the last step here. Really the only way to, if you're making a change, what's the change, for instance? Is it something to do with dates or like a price?
Yeah, it could just be the most minute thing, which is really a big thing, but it still kicks me back to that inspection waivers, radon testing, termites, fill it all out, just on that section.
Right. I mean, the only thing, the quick and dirty way is you can actually draw lines through whatever's wrong.
Okay.
And when you go back, you can actually then add either the new date, and you can put 05/01/2021, and then just make sure obviously that you're having the party's initial and date next to it. Besides that, other than that, you would have to go back because it won't let you correct anything that's already pre-printed on the form.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure, and you know what too? You're welcome. And this is one of the other tips too. We'll do a separate class on DocuSign, but since we're here and I know we have about maybe 10 more minutes, the one quick tip that I always do inside here. So for instance, in the PAR form for the agreement of sale, you have to shift around constantly, either elected, waived, and delete them and whatnot.
Yeah.
If you have it where you add an initial, you can copy and literally paste them and then just kind of start doing it that way, which I think you said you copy and paste your life away. So maybe you already knew that. But the same applies because they're already set up in boxes. If you have 2 sellers, you'll have 2 sets of signatures, initial boxes. If you highlight them by holding down shift, you can actually highlight them, hit delete, and that'll get rid of it. So hopefully it'll kind of save a little bit of time with the copy and paste.
Yes.
With the initial boxes. Sure. You're very welcome. All right. Is there anything else that we can go over to revisit? I know we have about 10 minutes. So any questions or anything to go back in the beginning of the presentation?
No other questions in the chat right now. Somebody, Jeanette Arthur has her hand raised.
Sure, go for it, Jeanette.
Hi, thank you. Could you go back
You're welcome.
to what you just showed about how to add all those little initial boxes
Sure.
at one clip? Because that would make my life so much easier.
I think that's the best tip is, because these are a pain. I like Jersey contracts for the reason that they don't include this waive and elected stuff. And in fact, let me add one real quick. Let me just do a new offer. I'm going to go and do it. I'm going to do a buyer folder because they'll have all those little boxes in there. So this is PA. If I'm under my documents tab and I'm under offer, I have my agreement of sale. All right, so let's e-sign. So we know we have a buyer. I'm going to have to sign. So when we get to that add signatures, and this is where we have to prep everything or get rid of those little initial boxes and add signatures or whatnot. So if I'm viewing it over here, I can see who's the signature. So right now it's say the buyer. And when we go down to page 8, 7 and 8. So that's everybody's worst nightmare because it's a lot of work in here. So what I do to save time, if for some reason she's waiving everything, I can highlight just by holding down shift as I go and I click and I highlight. And if I hit delete, that'll get rid of it. Now, obviously she's got an initial one side, so I can do the exact same thing on the other side. And right here underneath her name where it says required field, it now becomes that solid color, which means now it's required. Now the signer can't skip over it, which happens a lot in sellers property disclosures and BFIs. So I can go and delete and continue the process. Okay, I know they want to do radon and property and flood insurance. So I highlight, and that means I'm going to delete these because this is not applicable. So if I highlight it just by holding down shift, you get rid of it that way.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And kind of the same thing there. And required field. All right. So that is the overview for zipForms. Hopefully you learned some tips that you can put forward into your business to shave off some seconds and keep you out there or on Zoom calls instead of hanging around wondering what to do in your zipForm file.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. We appreciate your time.
Sure.
Just so everyone knows, if you missed something, the recording will be emailed to all members along with Jim's presentation at some point, either later today or tomorrow. And we look forward to having you again, Jim, hopefully in the fall with some other tech programs for us. Don't forget, just so members know, we have a couple more programs this month that are free to all members. We have a coffee connection on environmental issues on April 14th at 8:45 a.m. with Greg Emmons, the attorney who spoke earlier, and David Sulak from Current Environmental. And then on April 22nd at noon, we have another one of our education programs that's being sponsored with the Diversity Committee on Fair Housing. Thanks, everyone. If you have any questions, give us a call. And thanks again, Jim.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks,
have a great
everybody.
day. Bye-bye.